Great. Okay, well, welcome to the 3 steps of forgiveness. And I really want to make this quite practical and try and give you some tools that have helped me, and I've seen help others, because I've tried them out at different times with different sort of guinea pigs and tried to refine them. Try to have tools that can be done quite quickly, and ones that you need to take a bit more time and preparation for. All the mobiles are switched off, are they? I hope. It's great when they go off in the middle of a guided journey. It's a real call for forgiveness. The longer exercise at the end I have on a handout, so if you want to repeat it, please do. If you remember how many times during the day we repeat grievances, then we can repeat these exercises if they work, also on a daily basis, which I'd encourage you. The most difficult thing I find myself is that though I begin to get some of the answers and some of the tools, the hardest thing is to remember to do them. Because the ego reflex kicks in when the grievances are around, and it immediately gives us its solutions. Fall asleep, a Mars bar, sex, turn on the computer, put a video on, mull it over in your mind. They're so inbuilt that to actually just try the other way is, I think, the hardest part. Then once you get into trying one of these approaches, then you wonder, why didn't I do it earlier? Because they actually do work. So that's something I've learned myself, just to remember to try. I've made some of them so short that if you're at work, you could just go into the toilet and do them, which I've also done. Just grab a space. I was a member of the Findhorn Foundation, and the majority of our guidance was received in the toilet. Seems to be a familiar subject today for some reason. And that was Eileen Caddy, who had no time to receive her guidance. She had 3 children. She lived in a caravan. And she said to God, you want me to receive your guidance? How do I do it? I've got no time. And he says, well, what's wrong with the camp toilets between 11 and 3 in the morning? And so she used to rug up and go there. So it's a question of will. Do you want to do it? That's the big issue. Not the how so much, but do you want to do the exercise? And then to forgive yourself when you don't want to do it. Otherwise, you're on another guilt trip, of course. So, to make it easy to remember, I thought I'd use the AAA approach, okay? So, I've broken the steps down into awareness, acceptance, and asking for help. And those are the same, it is related to Dr. Kenneth Wapnick's treatment of 3 steps of forgiveness. You'll see some similarities there. And he did a lot of work on this in his early books, which are well worth reading. So, awareness, of course, often uses the word vigilance. And awareness is primary to spiritual traditions. You sometimes hear the expression compassionate witness, observer, just witness. Just to be aware of what's going on in you, to undo denial. And to look into that, we'll start with our first exercise. You need a piece of paper, I have some scraps here, and a pen. It's quite a short exercise, but it's very important. Anyone need some paper? Thank you. Paper? Is draw a line down the centre of the piece of paper. You don't do a small piece of paper. The line across. A bit like a crucifix. So far so good?
Yeah.
Great. Now I want you to think of someone someone who's you both have a like and a dislike for. Someone who both pushes your buttons and someone you can see good qualities in as well. It could be someone you've known a long time, your family, perhaps someone who's died. It could be someone you've met this weekend. Might be someone on television.
So it must be a person.
A person, yes, a human. I suppose you could choose a dog. They get a bit human at times, don't they? But, you know, you get more from a human. Okay. Some people say, well, I can't think of anyone, and perhaps in their immediate circle they might not, but think of the television, you know. Perhaps some of the dictators, if you like, in favour at the moment has Bin Laden. But you can go back to Saddam or Hitler if you like. And then in the top left corner, you write what I like about, and then put the person's name in. What I like about John. What I like about Bin Laden.
Right.
I think someone's found their person over there. And on the top right is what I dislike. This is where you lose your peace. It's not like Jesus looking at us and showing us all our ego defects, which he does in great glory in the textbook especially. He's not upset by them. You're looking for things where you lose your peace. So in the positive column, just put the key words. What I like about Mary is kind, listens to me, sensitive, smile, the way she dresses. And then on the other side, what I dislike about Mary, maybe the opposite, she's angry, withdrawn, jealous, insensitive to me, doesn't listen. And just spend a couple of minutes listing perhaps 4 or 5 likes or dislikes. This innocent little exercise is the heart of forgiveness, so just take a bit of time. Perhaps a couple of you who have done it before, you might want to choose the previous person, see if anything's changed, got worse or better.
Do you do them alternately, or?
Well, it's probably easy just to run through the likes first, you know, you're in that mood.
Right.
Because if you switch to the dislikes, you may never get back to the likes.
Right.
Yes.
They sort of become all black quickly. And of course, the list may be quite unbalanced. There might be very few likes.
Same person.
Same person, but if you can't find enough material, you could add a second name, just to fill the list up. Your lists are quite confidential. The best one will be published in the Miracle Network by ACIM. The more you can write, the better. I will warn you with this exercise that it's horrific to the ego. Just to warn you. So watch out for denial and switching off at the moment, for those who are new to it. So I want you to go back to the top of the list where the name is and cross the name out and now write your own name.
What, just on the positive side?
Both sides on the road. Good try. The course teaches about denial and projection as the basic mechanisms of the ego in this world. That there is no problem in the world, only in your mind. Why there seems to be a problem in the mind is that you've denied what's in yours and projected it out. Both the so-called good and the so-called bad. So on the left are qualities that are in you. They may be less or greater than in the person that you're projecting them onto. But they have to be in you for you to recognize them elsewhere. Otherwise there's no way you can recognize them. As we're dealing with forgiveness, however, we need to switch to the right-hand list. Sorry about that. And there we have what we've denied and projected out. That's why I said pick things where you've lost peace, not just observations of others. Now the first thing is you need to notice if there's a change of form. There might be, I dislike John because he smokes, you don't. But what does that signify? Does it signify perhaps insensitivity in John? Does it indicate that when he's smoking he doesn't really care about you because he knows you don't like smoke? You know, what does it stand for? So you have to think a bit deeper with some of them. It might be you don't like John because he's fat. You know, you've got quite a good figure. However, you know, that thigh is a little thick, the tummy is just a bit bigger than you'd like. And so though you're not fat, you do have issues around the body. So just take a minute in silence to have a look at the lists. Also watch any denial that will come in. People start asking me metaphysical questions at this point, I find. It's quite fascinating because they don't want to look at that list. It is horrible to the ego. Its whole ethos is there's nothing particularly wrong with me, it's the world. And then to be told that it has to be in you. Whereas you picked Bin Laden or Hitler, he's in you. Otherwise you'd have compassion for these people, not hatred. Spend a quiet minute or two having a look at that. See if you can see that in you or not. Watch the way you want to turn away from the list, or perhaps try and say, well, this doesn't work. Is there anything you want to ask me that perhaps doesn't make sense? Yes?
Something doesn't make sense. I'm sure it's a metaphysical question. But there you go. Well, it's a fundamental problem I have with this, and that is that what's happening if it's actually someone who won't forgive you, but you long to be in relationship with them.
So is this an aspect on your negative list here? There's
No,
a key
this
word?
is before I even start the list.
Okay.
There are some people in this world, I can't believe it, but they don't like me.
Okay, we'll work with this hypothesis, right? Okay. And?
Well, I long to be in relationship with them.
So you want to be liked, and they don't like you.
Yeah.
So on the negative side of the list is that they don't like me. And that's what I dislike. You want them to like you.
Yeah.
Okay, so then...
I don't even dislike the fact they don't like me.
Oh, so you don't mind if they sort of hate you?
I care about the fact they don't like me.
So would you say that on that side is that you'd really like to be joined with them, you really like them to be positive towards you so you can come together. So in this exercise you bring it back to yourself and you then say, how much do I like me? They're reflecting some aspect of yourself. So how much do I like me? What's my self-worth? Am I worth being liked? Once someone's happy with themselves, totally happy with themselves, and it's very rare of course, they don't care whether people like them or not. You go as far as, say, Jesus, and his 4 pages where he described his crucifixion, and he puts the agony in the Garden of Gethsemane in quotes, because he says, how could I be abandoned? I know I'm one with God. I know who I am. What humans do to me, whether they nail me up, I know who I am. Most of us don't, so we want to be liked. In Lesson 50 there is a list of things the ego has as its security in the world. Prestige, status. One of them is knowing the right people, is another one. But another one is being liked. So it brings it back to the fact that I don't like myself, so I want to see other people liking me. Anyone else? Yes?
I put the same qualities on both sides of some of this.
Okay, do you want to give an example?
Well, it doesn't worry about the opinion of others. I can see it as a negative thing and a positive thing as well.
Yes, it has 2 aspects, doesn't it? Yes, where we should be open to feedback. We don't have to take it in, but we should listen to it. Very true for people in my position, where you get an awful lot of feedback. You do an exercise and afterwards someone comes up and says, that's changed my life, and someone comes up and says, what a complete waste of time. Why don't you do something better? So I then have to listen. So on the negative side, if we focus more on that, you don't like the person because they don't listen perhaps to what you have got to give them. They're not listening to your advice or your opinion. They're indifferent to you. They don't think you're very important. So that's where you go. You take it deeper. The trick is that you tell your truth, and whether it's received or not, in one sense is irrelevant. I was doing a workshop in Austria, and it was one of my first sort of outreach workshops. And when I went round the circle to say, why have you come? 4 or 5 men all said, my wife brought me. And then others said, I wanted a weekend away from Vienna in the country. I'm about to launch through an interpreter into the metaphysics of A Course in Miracles. I didn't quite do it that evening. And I went back, and my wife then, the late wife, had very strong inner guidance. I said, look, I'm in this group. I don't really want what I have to give. And her guidance was, Michael, all that's important is that you believe in what you're teaching, that you're happy with what you're saying. How they receive it, what happens, is not to do with you. And I was thinking about a particular guy who seemed off the wall. I don't know why he was there. And he said, Mike, you'd be surprised at what changes can occur. And it was that guy that had the big change on the Sunday. And I learned a lot from that. To say what I have to say and then leave it. It's not easy, of course. We like our feedback. Anyone else?
I'm quite
Sorry, you second, you first.
I'm quite clear, whether I like it or not, that some of them I can recognize in myself.
Right.
But some, I could be standing here fighting that no, I've done all my bit not to be like that, and how can anybody think that I am not?
How dare they, in fact, yes.
So I would like some help on how to even face that.
Do you want to be brave enough to choose one?
Well, the one I have a particularly very strong issue is, as far as I'm concerned, I like to teach my children to do to others what you want them to do to you. I respect others and considerate others. And I've got a lot of feedback from everybody else, how wonderful my children are, how what a joy to be, and all the rest of it. So therefore, I feel very righteous to sort of say, well, I've done a good job. And an issue I have is with another lady who is obviously not doing that, who basically never listens and who jumps into how dare you say anything about my child who is doing whatever, and I am going and then yells at you back, so, and then buys something for the child to make him even better. So the child grows up really at the moment as a hooligan, and I feel frustrated that nobody guides this boy, although I was doing it myself as much as I could help. So this is the issue that I'm...
Sure. And so you can see an area of distress in another family, another child.
Yes.
You have proof that your children are happier, and they may well be happier. I can accept that. And then this person doesn't do what you ask, even though they're setting light to their fingers, and you say, well, look, if you put the match down, it won't hurt. They say, pardon? And they carry on. And so you can see where the pain's being caused. I just suddenly thought of Jesus looking at this world, you know, and everyone is going through pain all day long. And he says, look, will you just try my forgiveness? And I know it will take thousands of years, because it says in my lessons, if you do this lesson right, it could save you thousands of years. And he just patiently watches us all through pain. He has the complete secret. And will we follow it? Will you follow it? Hold it a moment. Will you follow that? Will you follow what Jesus says? Will you follow the course?
I would love dearly, because I do recognize that this is my only hope for peace.
Exactly. But what that says, and I'm with you, is that we're not doing it all the time, are we?
No.
We have this loving brother who tells us, and the thing is, he's not upset that we don't do it. And he can see the way out. And then we also then try and help others, and boy, do we get upset. So there has to then be the personal involvement. So I think on one level, it mirrors, you're not following my good advice, and by God, I don't follow Jesus' good advice. And deep down, I feel guilty that I've still playing my game of separation. I don't want to go home. And we're all in that, aren't we? And we don't consciously realize it at the time. But the root must always be the same, separation.
And in fact, I've just had a click that what really upsets me is that she's not willing to listen, although I so care. And it reflects I've got a tremendous issue about not being able to listen.
Oh, great, well done. So we can smile again.
Well, I still, don't know whether I can listen, but at least I'm aware of it now.
I love that line, to learn to smile at the egos instead of beating them up. Like, here we go again, what's new? Like Nick bravely shared this morning, we were such rebels, we were all naughty, we all know better than Jesus. And we begrudgingly try him from time to time, and then it works and we're happy, and then we rush back perhaps to our ego ways, saying, didn't we do well? And then we lose his hand again and grab the egos. So that's the game we play. No big deal. So.
I have a sister I'm very close to, but and have been all my life. But now she doesn't accept what I do. And I'm just suddenly wondering, is it that I'm not accepting what I do somehow?
So the dislike is your sister doesn't accept your new path or job?
Yes, I get irritated, that in some way, because she's not accepting what I'm doing now. Always when up to now she did, but in some way then she's rejecting me because it's not really ever coming to the surface, but it's there.
Right. And you, I think, begin to give your own answer, perhaps, that if you're really sure about what your new path was, then you'd have more peace and compassion. You may try and point out, but it wouldn't really matter so much what people thought. And I think that's so common that it reflects that we're never particularly 100% about anything here, are we? There's these fragments pulling at us. And then these people come along and they shine light on that pulling. And I know that, We defend the strongest when we feel uncertain. But once we're certain, then we stop defending. Never quite sure about the Bible, but Jesus sort of didn't give any reply at his trial. He never defended. He knew it was one with God. Just his presence was enough. So that's where they give a service. It was said yesterday, the person's your saviour, or what's the other one, your crucifier. And you see it on this list. The ones that really give us the stuff are putting a searchlight on something. And there can be no exception, ever. We all decide when we lose our peace. And when we're healed, we don't. And then, the first stage of forgiveness is when you can say thank you to that person. Because Jesus says we can't be saved without our brothers, because they show us what's in our unconscious. They produce these lists. You've got months of homework here if you want to use them. It's that simple and that difficult. So.
It was just something about that last, I wrote it down because I was so impressed that we defend strongest when we feel uncertain, and that when we are certain we stop defending. And what just came up was how attached I get to my ideas, which I may feel pretty certain about them, but because of the attachment, I will defend them in the face of doubt or something, or perceived attack from somebody else. I do still feel quite certain about these ideas, but I still feel the need to defend them because of my attachment to them.
I want to see what happens to me when I'm really certain, then I don't have to defend.
When I'm really certain.
And that's because I know it in my bones. If I said to you, why have you come here with 3 heads? You're not going to get angry. Come on, Michael, put in a bit of therapy or something. Been teaching too long and sees attack everywhere. And I'd say, no, you have got 3 heads, and I can prove it. And you're not going to lose your peace around it, are you? Because you're dead certain that you've got 1 head.
Being really certain.
Yeah, you're really certain, yeah.
Thank you.
So we need these people to show our uncertainties. And of course we love control, we love to be certain, because then at last we've got a little bit of pseudo peace. And somebody comes along and goes, oh, I thought I was so certain and knew that. And then you attack, of course, because you've lost your peace and they've done it. But really, perhaps not at that moment. I find there's always a delay most of the time, because I'm not enlightened, where I get upset and then take the upset away, and then work with it, with exercises that we're going to move on to in a moment. With time, we'll get quicker. Instead of taking 3 months to forgive, it'll be 3 weeks, 3 days, 3 hours, 3 minutes. That, I think, is progress in the Course in Miracles. I'm not in a position where somebody attacks me and I just beam back love and forgiveness.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on the time frame? Between, you say that it does, the reaction or the response doesn't happen straight away.
Not usually, because they caught me. I'm feeling fairly peaceful, and someone says, "What about this?" And they've hit something I've denied, and it comes up as a shock and a stun, and the ego reflex will come in, and I might withdraw or attack, go quiet, defend. Defend's a good one. No, you don't quite understand. Let me explain. And then they see the weakness and their ego engages and they develop another argument, and at some point I blow it and they're... So normally I go away, perhaps cursing the person, and then very slowly what I teach starts to come to me. That I have elected to give my peace away, always. You can't blame anyone. I just found a brother who's shown another bit of my guilt. Ken had an analogy in the early days of we carry our guilt like an iceberg. I could draw it up here somewhere. And with an iceberg, you're only aware of the bit that sticks out of the water, aren't you? About 10% of an iceberg. This is our conscious guilt. Guilt's the sum total of all our negative feelings, our lack of self-worth, how we hate ourselves. There's this huge chunk, and this is what we need our brothers for. Show me my bit under the water. I got this bit under the control, which is not much help either, but I can manage it perhaps. But this is the one where they say, Michael, you could have explained that better. Call yourself a Course in Miracles teacher. Of course, if I don't fully believe in what I'm doing, that's it. And what I then do is project it. Or straight at them. But if I start to own it, begin to, like with the list, do a list, you begin to realise what they've hit, and then with forgiveness, this bit floats to the surface. And you've lost a bit of guilt. You needed your brother to see it, and then you need yourself and Jesus to forgive it. But we're lost without each other. Denial. Jesus said to Helen once, I think while she was waking up, never underestimate the power of denial. In my early years, I would quite happily deny that I denied.
Michael, can I add something from what the gentleman over here was saying?
Certainly.
What came to me to do with that was that it's like you may be certain about something, and then it's like someone else questions that, and because it's like because you don't believe in yourself, or you believe in them more than you believe in yourself, that's what makes you not have the strength to be that sure about yourself. I don't know, how does that...
Certainly. I mean, one of our escapes is to give our power to somebody else. You look at the mechanism of a cult, it's quite fascinating. The moment of conversion is when you give your thinking to someone else. The cult leader tells you when to get up, when to give away the books, when to do this, when to go back to bed, what lectures to listen to. And there's this enormous relief in you. I don't have to think anymore. I don't have to make decisions. And in a small way, we do this to a person, Oh well, you look after my life. There's still the old thing in relationships, the man on the white horse is still hoped for, perhaps no longer in this group, will save the woman, the damsel. And the damsel says, oh, I have a knight to protect me. It is strong in our psyches, isn't it? And the men can play this game of saving the weaker woman. They need to be needed, so they look around for a child. As a child, and of course, it's not just the sexes. You can have the strong woman, the mother that looks after the weak man. So, if you've gone into that as a defense mechanism for your ego, you then, at some point, like through the list, make a decision that this doesn't serve me. I've relied too long. And when they analyse those people who've been taken out of cults and then have to be deprogrammed, which can take up to 2 years, when they come out, they say the hardest thing was to start thinking for myself again. I no longer had a God. But your God may be your next door neighbour, who you run to, or your boyfriend, or your mother, or your father. And sure, we can do with some good advice, but we should be in the state where we can say, thank you for that advice, and inwardly, well, that doesn't sound right. And then you hear advice and you say, oh, that's great advice, thank you. But you're still there. Have you given that bit away? And then underneath you hate the person. You can watch that one, because you're dependent on them for the advice. And so, though they're helping you, you hate the weakness in you that's always seeking support, advice. And that person represents to you your weakness. So though they're helpful and you're saying thank you, if they become weak, you probably will attack them. You see your chance. Where did that come from? I just attacked my friend. One last person before we move on from this wonderful list.
Can you just give me a rank from the one who's being the husband or the partner of this person who wants advice?
The one who's giving the advice,
Yeah.
where are they coming from?
Yeah.
If it's coming from a pure rescuing mode, which often it is, then if they were doing this, and to look at what the rescuer really is, it's actually a vicious attack on people. What a rescuer says is that you're not a Christ with an inner strength, you're a weak ego. And as such, you need help from outside yourself, i.e. me. You obviously can't contact the Christ or the Holy Spirit. You need me. And a dependency is then set up. And on the other side, the victim, who's always seeking advice, doesn't want to change or heal anyway. And the one who's given the help and the rescuing actually wants that, because they need to be needed. Their self-worth is being bolstered by having people coming to them. Excuse me. So the victim doesn't want to get healed, and the rescuer doesn't want them to heal, so they're bonded for life. And this pattern goes on continuously until one of them sees through it. And the rescuer then may say, oh my God, I'm not helping people, I'm attacking people. I'm making them dependent on me. They ring me up every night, they're knocking on my door all the time. Secretly I like this, except for my lack of self-worth. But, oh my God, I need to set them free. So one day one of them rings up for more advice, and you just tune in and you say, well, no, Mary, I think I'll leave you with this one. What? But you always help me, and you're going to cook the dinner tomorrow because I just can't look after the children anymore. No, I think I'll leave you with this one, Mary. By the end of the week, all your victims, all the people you're rescuing, which are victims, have gone off to find another rescuer. You're friendless. And though you're forgiven, your need to rescue others, you're now alone. And deep down you know that, and that's what blocks forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't just releasing something like the need to rescue. You realise your whole life will change. And you don't want that to happen, so you block the forgiveness. But what do we want? Heaven or hell? And we have to at some point make that decision.
What if somebody's trying to rescue?
Rescue you?
Yeah. But the person who's being rescued doesn't want to be rescued by them.
Mm-hmm. No problem whatsoever, if they really mean that. No rescuers are psychic, they know their victims, as their victims know the rescuers. They bond, they meet at a conference and they find each other very quickly. And they spend the rest of the weekend together, being nurtured by being helped. You don't want the help, but you pretend you do. So if you find you're being rescued, there's still a filament going. You still have a flag coming out the head. Maybe small. It says, please rescue me. Otherwise, they won't approach you. They know they won't win here. There's plenty of victims around. They don't have to waste their time on you. Go and find an easy one.
So why do I get angry then at people trying to rescue me?
Okay, there's different levels. Would you say you were a rescuer yourself or not? Do you have your own group that you rescue? You may not. I'm not saying you do. So that's a very simple one. You just have to keep dropping levels now. They're rescuing me. Do they think I'm weak? Do you think you're weak? I'm not saying that. That's what you look for, you see. They're saying, they keep seeing a weakness in me. They keep trying to help me. And then deep down, I think I'm weak. Well, we all do, don't we, as egos? But you don't like to be shown that. So it may be that. Yes.
I need a practical advice on this. Put the situation that maybe your partner hurts you, and then he says to you, "Oh, I really love you, please forgive me," and you forgive him or her. And then sometimes the pain comes out and you can't control it, and you are full of anger, and you really want to forgive him, and maybe you said to him, "Yes, I forgive you," and then you are full of anger, and it's not fair on this person, because either you forgive him or not. But so what should you do if you have forgiven but still
You feel anger. Okay, well, obviously you haven't forgiven, because the sign of forgiveness is peace. Yes.
You know that.
Yeah.
So it's a tragedy, because maybe you want to forgive and you can't.
That's right. Or you may say, "I forgive you." The Course is different from the world's forgiveness. The Course says that you forgive people for what they haven't done to you. That's a good meditation, just to take that line. You forgive because from this list, you see, all they're doing is reminding you of your unhealed parts, of your unforgiven parts. When you get angry, you're being reminded of something you haven't forgiven in yourself. So the only person you forgive in this world is yourself. When you do that, simultaneously you will forgive the other person, your teacher, and because they no longer can trigger that. So forgiveness is always of oneself, not of another. I'll give you some quotes on that. Psalm of Prayer was brought out to help clarify some of the confusion that was coming in around forgiveness and prayer just about 2 years after the Course was published. The ego was at work quickly there. This is from page 10 of the Song of Prayer. It is impossible to forgive another, for it's only your sins you see in him. That's the negative list. You want to see them there, and not in you. That is why forgiveness of another is an illusion. There's no one to pray for except yourself. There's no one to forgive except yourself. Because there is nothing out there. You walk around in a hall of mirrors all day long, and all you ever see is yourself. The ego says, "No way, there's real trouble out there, and I'm justified in my pain."
What's the reference of that?
Page 10, Song of Prayer. Let me give you, while we're at it, a few other quotes from the Course to reinforce the awareness side. Forgiveness recognizes what you thought your brother did to you has not occurred. Same thing. It does not pardon sins and make them real. It sees there was no sin. Workbook, page 401. You see, we don't forgive sins. A sin would be altering the Christ, altering what God made. We're dealing with errors here, errors of perception. That's what we forgive. You never hate your brother for his sins, but only your own. Whatever form his sins appear to take, it but obscures the fact that you believe them to be yours, and therefore meriting, quotes, a just attack. That line is given great significance in this paragraph. This is text, page 651. You never hate your brother for his sins, but only for your own. This is our list. And he says of that line, it must become a habit of response so typical of everything you do that it becomes your first response to all temptation and to every situation that occurs. Learn this and learn it well, for it's here delay of happiness is shortened by a span of time you cannot realize. And Jesus talks in those terms, add thousands of years. So he's saying, you may not be able to do anything quite at the moment, something comes up, and he's saying, you never hate your brother for what he just said or did, only for for what you have inside you that you've just been reminded of. At that moment, your pride and everything's in the way, and you can hardly confess this or need to. But it's something you can take with you, perhaps into a quiet moment, into a prayer, which should be one of the next exercises.